So today's agenda is to talk about where we are in our strategic goals for this year. And I think one of the best things we did is add them to every agenda so they stay close to our hearts and always kind of at the top of what we do. I wanted to go, I guess we'll just go through each one. And they're on, obviously, well, if you don't have your agenda, I will read them, but the first one is encourage continued ag use of viable farmland and discourage development of those parcels by directing developers to more appropriate locations within the town. So we actually talked about this at our last meeting and had a pretty detailed discussion with Bob DiCarlo on the all-encompassing ag district as well as the new proposed ag overlay area, which Doug actually worked on. And so I think that's actually very important. I don't know if we want to talk any more about that, but I think it really enhances and gets us to this goal of ours.
I think one of the biggest threats that I see to farmland, valuable agricultural land right now is actually solar. I just was meeting with Chris Jensen upstairs, another new solar farm trying to take a farm out of active production and convert it all to solar.
Right.
So I mean, that just continues to come up. And so finding that balance, right? So that is, I think, one of the positive aspects of our current solar law, that it says that the planning board cannot issue a special use permit for solar unless it finds that it's not a loss of valuable agricultural land. So that really puts the onus back on, you know, it's not saying that we can't do solar. The solar, they can get creative, they can put it in the scrub land, they can put it on the peripherals, all those types of things. But we are unique in that regard, because otherwise we would be losing farmland to solar. So I think that's one of the biggest development threats for farmland right now.
How about if it's above a certain mega giga, doesn't this state take over in
well, so
permitting process?
So that's been interesting because that really gets all into the Article 10 stuff with the state, and there are thresholds for that, right? But from what I understand, there's court cases currently where, and it's going to be interesting to see how some of that holds up, right? Because the state is basically trying to trump the
local NIMBYs who, and Victor took it 5 years to get through, and right. So the state was frustrated.
But from a housing perspective on farmland, we've actually done pretty well in steering the housing to areas like either uptown or some of the areas that's not in the strategic farmland, but the solar thing that keeps popping up in the strategic farmland areas.
Well, we're going to have to come to a point where we can balance solar farms versus ag farms, because of course they're both necessary. In my opinion, you know, fossil fuels are just not going to last us. Maybe your lifetime, but not my lifetime.
but that's why the law gives the flexibility to look at it on a case-by-case basis, right? So like the Monks Road is the perfect example where that one worked out very, very well. Versus the one right up the street here, that is prime farmland that you know, that is currently hayed year after year. And they were going to take that one out of production. So, you know, it's finding that balance. So, you know.
I see the dilemma. I can't see an answer. But we have to be open.
You know, that's the beauty of that. I know that there's some tweaking that needs to be done. I understand with the law, but at least giving the planning board that flexibility to review it on a case-by-case basis, getting the input from the agriculture committee, getting all the input, looking at all the data, and then making an informed decision. They have the flexibility to do that.
I went to the presentation at our training session at solar. One of the things the fellow suggested was permitting them to be higher so you could graze underneath them. So kind of a trade-off.
Mhm.
You could have goats or sheep or
Yeah,
perhaps cows.
we'd have to look at that.
Mhm.
you
yeah, that's
know,
true.
I always like to bring up that example. I talked to a solar company years ago. That was, I don't know if it's still even there or if they're still doing this, but I think it was in like the town of Seneca or something where they still grew cabbages, but they had to space the array rows a little farther apart so that the
could
equipment
get
could
through.
still come through the middle, but they still did it. Now, this was years ago. I don't know if they're still doing it successfully, but they said, you know, that company at least, we'll do whatever, you know, do both. I've heard of other places where they do, yeah, they'll
they do
graze
the grazing. Yeah, I've seen pictures of that.
in between. So if the solar company and the farmer, you know, can plan together, you can do it in a way that works for both, but you're still gonna lose some production.
And there's other solar processes. There's rooftop solar, which is permitted anywhere in the town of
Right.
Canandaigua. You could do that. The other thing, especially as we're looking at some of the urbanized areas like Uptown, is actually side panels on the sides of the buildings. They can be very aesthetically pleasing, almost look like a glass type finish, and then also generate the solar. So, you know, we've got to be thinking about all of those types
We
of
have to
things
think
also.
of both of them. For example, New Energy Works, their flat roof is all solar
Mhm.
and they return energy back to the grid. So those things, perhaps we should think in terms of, well, they do give companies a break for doing that, but be more proactive in it. Because there's many flat roofed buildings.
Well, the
many
other thing that
commercial
usually,
buildings.
that a lot of times up until now anyway, he usually comes with the request for solar are pilots. And the town
Mhm.
opted out of the solar tax exemption in 1997. And every time that's come up has renewed opting out of that exemption. And so sometimes, you know, they decide not to locate in the town of Canandaigua because of that, but we do obviously have some facilities, so.
Where, you know, the schools in Canandaigua are flat roofed. They're perfect for solar,
Or even the
Yeah.
sides, it could be a combination of both.
right?
So,
Yeah, all I'm saying is we need to be open to suggestions on how to deal with solar, because I think it's the thing of the future.
And
Get solar on the
the
highway.
technology will catch up as far as the
Exactly.
efficiency levels, the
Storage.
durability,
Right.
storage.
Storage is a big issue.
The batteries
Smaller
are getting
footprints, yes.
Solid state batteries. and Getting away from lithium, all
Mhm.
that'll happen, not with your in my lifetime, but.
But you gotta move in that direction.
Yeah.
You do.
They're talking about that. That's the storage mechanism. Yeah. Let's see.
so how would you rate like where we're at with that goal?
Right, so
That's,
well, I think the question is, because solar keeps coming up, is do we, at this point, we can keep talking about it, or we can really look at our solar law and decide, you know, that it's time to be updated. It's 5 years old. The suggestion is generally every 2 years. And maybe that's even a better way for us to kind of push this goal, is to ensure that our solar law is the most current and is in line with our strategic goal.
And Chuck, are you listening?
I am.
I think, weren't there some deficiencies in our solar law that the fella, I can't come up with his name, pointed out
Bob, of course.
that we should be updating?
Yeah, I think as we worked the last couple of years with the solar law, we found some deficiencies or loopholes. And Bob LaCourse, who is our vice chairman on the planning board, has been tasked with looking at the law and coming up with some suggested recommendations to change it. So that's a work in progress. Every time Bob gets into something, thinks he has his arms wrapped around it, it becomes a grease pig and slides away from him. So he's going to work on it. He's very persistent. He's very interested in it. And hopefully we will have something to pass on to the ordinance committee at some point, recommending some changes.
Yeah, he and I are meeting this afternoon to go over some updates, and then I think we would have something this summer to send to the ordinance.
So in terms of the goal, though, they're in the comp plan, there were actually like metrics for measuring the goal in terms of achievement of that goal of basically what the verbiage is, something about steering development to those areas where it's most appropriate. That's my question.
Directing
Right.
developers to more appropriate locations.
So how does the CIC feel like we're doing in terms of that, I guess, right? How are we measuring that?
I don't know how to measure it, but we're certainly cognizant of it.
Right, right.
And
Maybe that's good enough.
yeah, by and large, we listen. I mean, everything is reviewed by the Ag Committee. It's always a work in progress, but I would certainly think we're mindful of preserving, directing development where sewer and water and farm fields aren't. And open to creative ways of preserving it.
I don't think it's a goal that'll ever be
Yeah, it'll never be
achieved. It's a
complete.
consistent
Right.
goal.
And they get tax breaks, they get water when they need it, but nope. Just lots of water.
They're our number one customer. Yeah. So that actually helps pay for all the water for all the residents in town that would consolidate.
While you guys were talking, I did bring up the comp plan, and this is the agricultural goal, and these are the measurables that we decided. Not just for this
That's
one
the
priority,
overall
but
ag.
for all of the agricultural things. So, I mean, if we're trying to see if we're doing a good job of keeping agriculture going, we can measure acres in agricultural production and things like that. Statistics, but
Do we have figures for all of these things at start?
we have some older numbers. Obviously, we're stuck with the data we can get our hands on. I think the ag enhancement plan is probably the place I would look for the recent stuff, but we'd have to look and see what the data source was and see if there's been an update.
Maybe we should ask the ag committee to look at this and then make a report
Good
back.
idea, yeah. Can we get ag acres in RPS?
Yeah.
We could probably pull.
That for sure, we have the number of
Mhm.
acres that are in ag because the assessor has. to
Yeah,
know it,
because they get their,
But it's
If
constantly
they have the
diminishing.
exemption, yeah.
if
Yeah.
they have the exemption.
You can look
right.
at those and see if they're any different. Doesn't capture everything.
It
in ag,
doesn't
but it
capture
captures the ones
smaller,
that are.
It captures the bigger operations.
The thing that would be interesting would be the middle one, the variety, quantity, and dollar value of agricultural products, which is really a measurement of how successful your agricultural program is. But as technology increases and the capability of farms changes, we should be able to see an increase in those figures without seeing an increase in agricultural land.
Who quantifies it though, I wonder?
What?
How do we, who quantifies it?
I don't know, but it's on there,
Well,
see, so.
That one in the center, if I remember correctly, might be from the county. And I don't-
The county's ag plan?
No, they did an agricultural economic
Yeah.
something
yeah,
report and we had numbers, but I'm not sure if it was narrowed down beyond the county level. But they had those metrics.
You know who
I
would
think
have
Doug's
that
idea
is
is a
what's
good
his
one.
name, Tom.
Have the ag committee.
Ag committee, yeah.
Tom Schwartz? What do you think
No,
of the county?
County, Tom,
Harvey?
Oh,
Harvey,
That's
yeah.
what I meant.
but I wouldn't like that, you knew who I meant.
Still telling.
So ask the ag committee to look at the measurables and come back
How we
with
do
a,
it.
and how,
Well, and then the ag
What the
committee is
metrics
obviously
are.
working on like the overlay, so that goes back to the goal
Yeah.
of steering development to those
Right.
areas where most appropriate, et cetera.
and also the form-based code area is a definite, I mean, that's steering everything away from. Permanently protect lands with natural resource significance and support recreation on protected lands.
We did that last night.
Well, was my number one. So we are acquiring, well, possibly, potentially, if it closes. How many acres?
8.
7, 8,
So,
8 acres adjacent to McJanet Park, which some people don't know where that is. Like it's the overlook, the scenic overlook on 21.
Right.
Yep, we are acquiring the piece to the north.
Town board agenda,
To
that's
the-
map that I
Yeah,
used.
north
North
of
of
it,
it.
north adjacent.
The one I sent you.
No, so I created it,
Oh, with
It's-
the,
that shows this. It's so
Where
you
did
go
you
to the
save
working
that?
folder. It's
Oh.
under the town board agenda working folder for the land acquisition resolution.
Oh, you want me to go there?
But that's significant because of the impact on the lake.
Yeah, so
So
the
much.
nice thing about that parcel is it has very steep slopes. It has slopes in excess of 30% on it, which are certainly listed in our natural resources inventory and protection. It has the entire parcel is all northern hardwoods. So it's completely forested. It has blue line stream through it with the gully. Plenty of room for some sort of water quality improvement project. There is a lot of wildlife habitat there, a lot of bedding. When Lindsay and I walked the property, we saw a lot of bedding of where different wildlife was and stuff. And it's immediately to the north of McJanet Park. The other thing is in the comp plan, in the Trails Master Plan, in the Parks and Rec Master Plan, all 3 of those documents called for an expansion of McJanet Park to the north for a trail to get to that gully. And so this gives us direct access. What that called for is going in the right of way, but now we actually have the parcel so we can access it. And actually walking it, there's an area to the north where it's actually pretty flat where you could go in. I think we could actually extend the driveway into the woods to have a nice little picnic area, parking area inside the woods without doing any damage to the trees and stuff that would then provide that. But then the other big piece is the connection to linking up Finger Lakes Vista to Ananda Park. And so the Finger Lakes Vista, you can see, is the big parcel on the left that comes all the way down. That's our project, the Finger Lakes Land Trust. Comes right to the parcel that I'm talking about is the parcel that has the green highlighting around the edges, right next to McJanet. And then we've got possible, actually I'm meeting with Mr. Rhodes this afternoon, but easement across the roads parcel there. And then we have one little strip left, which will then be able to link up directly to Ananda. So
Perfect Eagle project, Eagle Scout project.
oh,
Typical.
right,
Typical, it's like the one down in Ananda Park and that off Farms Road. I could just picture that now. Adeline Rudolph would love it.
Right away, you're talking about a trail
Mhm.
Yes.
from one to the other.
Yep. What did Jared say, a bobsled
Gotta
track?
be some hardy hikers to go uphill.
yeah,
That's a lot of
it is.
elevation.
It is, but you know, it'd be a nice day trip for somebody that really likes hiking, go out
Right.
through there and everything.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice
How many
experience.
miles, I'm wondering, from, that'd be nice to look at.
I had hit it roughly, but I was gonna go back in detail, but I think it's 4 plus or minus 4 or 5 miles
Mhm.
up and across there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some thick areas in there and everything. But the other big thing that the comp plan calls for that we don't talk about a lot is protection of wildlife corridors and habitat. And that parcel 100% does
That
that.
is, yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Because of the waterway primarily, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't follow that.
But that blue line stream that goes through that parcel comes off of the Vista and then is the same exact stream that goes into Ananda. So, you know, if we could create some sort of weir structure on that parcel to hold the water back during the heaviest events, that'll also help with the situation down at Ananda.
Are there rules about doing something like that?
Yeah, we'll have to work with the DEC.
Well, there's always rules.
Yeah, there's always.
Oh,
rules,
yeah,
right?
I would guess, you know, every time you fool around with
Yeah.
water.
But there's, it's a nice deep gully.
Oh,
So there's,
yeah, it's,
But the gentleman who lives across the street, Mr. Rhodes there, Anthony Rhodes, he reached out to me on Mother's Day, and he wanted to let us know that that parcel, he actually sent me a message through Facebook and said, "It's emergency, please contact me." He said this parcel was just listed this morning. He said, "You gotta look at it. It's next to McJanet, and it was listed for sale for $69,900. At the time he reached out to me, they already had an offer of $65,000 on the parcel. And so we're able to work with the family. It's the estate of the Harrises. And the town board was fantastic. By the end of the day, on Sunday, Mother's Day, was able to make an offer that they had accepted on it. And subject to town board approval last night, which we did last night. But the big takeaway from that was the family. One of the things that I worked out with them is we're going to do some interpretive signage, much like we did at Miller Park, to tell the story of the Harris family. They used to own a lot of land in that area. The other thing that was part of the offer that we made was, because of the current real estate market, knowing that a lot of times they have escalation clauses right now because the property will sell way above asking price. And so our escalation clause was any offer, any bona fide offer that they get above the sale price of our purchase price, that we would give them a receipt for an in-kind contribution of that difference so that they could use it to offset their capital gains. No loss to us, right? We're a not-for-profit essentially. And so kudos to them. We're able to work out all that. And they had a $100,000 cash offer. We're paying $69,900 for it. We'll give them a receipt for the difference. They'll be able to use that to offset their capital gains. So
That's
creative.
yeah.
Well, that's great.
So
Nice
It was
goal.
hard to
So
believe that unbuildable steep slopes are worth that.
right.
It's just
Yeah, that's what I
frightening.
was thinking.
You know,
And
ordinarily, that's useless land.
but you know what and I know exactly what the offer is. The $100,000 offer was from a timber company that was going to come in and clear cut the whole entire
Oh,
parcel.
Whoa.
Wait a
yeah.
minute, could
Yes.
would Chris give them a permit on those steep slopes?
They
to
don't
like
need a
that?
permit. They can just go do it. That's agriculture.
That's ag. You can go in and.
Harvesting of timber is agriculture.
Wait a minute. I can't believe that we, the state, the town, would allow them to clear cut a gully.
Thank you. We need some protection in our code
Right.
against that.
I mean, and traditionally, that land has been worthless. I was appalled they were asking 70 grand for it.
The other parcel right next to McJanet, just to the south of that parcel also, you can't highlight it there,
That's for
but
sale. Yeah.
it just sold for just over 100,000.
Is that what it went
was?
for?
Yeah. That's an additional just about 8 acres. So
Were they, what, 95? What were they asking?
they were at list price was 95, but the deal that has been struck on that is just over 100,000 with some residual income relative to the financing. So everybody's having to get creative with all these different things. So,
Now, is that one Woodland?
no, the other one is a
It's-
combination.
Yeah.
It's got
It's
a
a nice
little
view
bit.
there.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful view there.
It's a Iron's niece or something, I think. that owned that.
Do you want to talk about the reinvigoration of the conservation easement
Yeah.
team? Okay, because I think that is very much in line with this goal,
Yeah. Yes, I think
the
most of you
regeneration.
have heard about it. Our conservation easement team that's been off again and on again for probably since 2014, 2015. last time they got together, they worked on the conservation subdivision regulations, got them revised so that they actually work to preserve land cover, you know, that's worth preserving rather than just being a way for developers to get more density. So they did a good job with that, and then they haven't done much since then, but I reached out to the former members and got some new members, and I think we have about 12 people. About 4 of them are people who are just going to be kind of getting communications and popping in and out as needed, like Max Heitner, he's with the Finger Lakes Land Trust. He comes when we need him or if we have questions for the land trust. But otherwise, he kind of just plays a I'll listen and advise if you need me role. We have a couple other people who are gonna stand by, Chuck included, thank you, and come as needed. But there's still about, I don't know, 7 or 8 people who are gonna be members. And now we're going to focus on protecting land with valuable natural resources through conservation easements, or otherwise, be it something like what we do with our ag land, like with PDRs from the state. That can also include non-agricultural land on some of those PDRs. Obviously, those have to be mostly for farmland, but they do sometimes include other land covers within the protection area. There are other programs out there. This year, DEC and the Land Trust Alliance had a joint program that offered municipalities money towards either purchasing outright or placing an easement on land that was at least 75% forest cover and at least 10 acres in size for the purposes of creating publicly accessible forest. So there are programs out there. There's also things, you know, that potentially the town, we could do ourselves to maybe provide some sort of a financial incentive to landowners. But these are the questions this group's gonna ask. Look at what other towns might be doing, look at what other programs might be out there and develop some sort of like an overall program. Like if we have a landowner who's interested in preserving their land, you know, maybe we can develop some sort of a overall list program, say, well, here's your options, here's what you can do with us, or here's who you can talk to do that. Yeah, see where we go with it, see how far we can get.
Could you, I was thinking about that meeting next Monday. I have lost the report that was at the conclusion of the last time this group was activated.
The original one?
Yeah, where we made suggestions to the town board, you know, things about
Yeah,
some kind of a tax exemption, the
Right.
tax breaks, you know, the incentives for people to
right, yeah.
do this. And again, we didn't have any success either with the town board or with residents, but we kind of consolidated information anyways. For instance, there seems to me there are some Monroe County towns that had a unique way of giving tax exemptions similar to an ag exemption for
Right, right. Yeah,
Even
So this
some that
group could
weren't
look
done
into
in
that.
perpetuity, they were, you know, if an owner agreed not to develop for 10 years, they got a break. So I thought it was quite generous way of forestalling development. But I don't have that report.
We have it, it's on the
Yeah,
website.
it's on the website.
Yeah.
Somewhere, good.
Anyway, that's what that group's gonna be up working on. They're our first meeting, or first meeting in a while, I should say, is next Monday here at 10 a.m. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's exciting. That's very exciting. What's that?
You know, be more of a challenge as
Third.
useless vacant land becomes more valuable.
Did you call it useless vacant land?
Pardon?
That's what
Did
he
you say
called it.
useless vacant land?
Well, yeah,
It's very
If there's a
subjective.
classic
It depends on your
piece of
point of view.
property.
Yeah, it's,
I,
and
but,
that's,
but really traditionally,
you mean unbuildable?
yeah, you
Yeah.
couldn't build on that parcel. $100,000 for a steep sided gully.
Right.
I paid
Problem is
premium
the
for it
God
just
is
to
not
have it.
making
Right, and
any
now
more land.
unbuildable is what we want.
Yeah, that's
That's
for sure.
unbuildable is coveted.
So what's there is gonna be desirable.
The other people that were interested, it was just to logging. I can't imagine that many large trees.
That's a beautiful site.
Yeah, it's mature hardwood
Mhm.
forest, yes.
So that-
Mhm. Yeah, and there is a flat spot where you could arguably build a house there too, so that's where I'm talking about.
And
with the parking lot,
and the north
on the south side of the gully,
south side, so near the
Big
bar.
Janet.
It's right by McJanet,
Yeah.
that spot, the space.
Okay. Well,
Any other insight? Promote housing and development growth within identified growth nodes and discourage development in environmentally sensitive areas. Very similar to the first one, very similar. I did want to call out our scenic viewshed overlay, because I think that's an important piece and step and, you know, guide for this. And we're really using it in the Canandaigua Shores, AKA Sunset Ridge 364 project. They are putting 1 acre lots on the hill up by Hopewell, on the Hopewell side, where you can see those lots from the lake. The one suggestion, and I think that we in development office need to look at is the map. Where's the map? Yeah. The scale is, it's hard to go into one parcel and decide sometimes just how much of it is in the view shed. We need to clean that up a little bit in terms of,
But I thought the code gives the planning board the flexibility on that.
they do, but I think for purposes of, I mean, when there's a tiny little purple spot, I just think that we could tighten it up a little bit. And it might involve going parcel by parcel
Yeah.
on some of those pieces that have a tiny faint purple in them. But yes, the planning board does have, as they do with a lot, flexibility to waive, suggest, condition approvals. Which they are doing. Chuck, do you want to chime in on this and use Canandaigua Shores as an example?
Well, yeah, with Canandaigua Shores, there was some controversy as to how much of the lot was in the scenic view shed. I think at the end of the day, we declared that the bottom half of the lot, which is essentially not within the view shed of the lake, would be appropriate for conventional zoning, where up top, where it definitely was in the view shed according to the purple map, as we call it. It was and would have to conform with the 1 acre requirements that the view shed provides for. So I think we've got that pretty well hammered out regarding Sunset Ridge, but as you said, Sean, it can come up in terms of discretion as to what is in the view shed and what is not. But also we do take some liberties as a planning board to make that determination, and it's up to the applicant to prove to us that it's not.
Yeah, I mean, we can always look at anything, but I think that's perfect because the planning board had to take a hard look at it and make some decisions, right? That's exactly what we wanted.
and the planning board goes out and looks at it.
Can
Right,
you,
you know.
can you point on there to where it's the bottom part of that
Yeah.
area? Yeah, well, that's what I thought.
Right.
It's fairly
Mhm.
level with the road and then it goes up.
Mhm.
It does. So the issue, I mean, when you have to, and it's again, you have to go out to these sites because once you go out, you realize that they're proposing, and once they develop, it's gonna be at like 20 feet. 20 feet slope, slope down. So you're not even gonna be able to see the homes on the bottom half, barely from Westlake or East Lake Road. So. And I wanted to just say, and I give the planning board some kudos for being so aware of all of our plans and being so respectful of the decision or the recommendations of the other boards. I mean, they really, and I know the ECB wonders, and I'm sure maybe the Ag Committee wonders, does the planning board really take into consideration what we're suggesting? And they absolutely do, absolutely 100%. Read every comment. And really take those comments into consideration. And I just want to make that point because I think that needs to just be, we need to recognize that again.
So, you mentioned the Sunrise Ridge for the scenic view shed overlay as an example. I'll tell you another one that I know is starting to percolate out there is the Notre Dame Retreat House. If that comes up for sale, a lot of that is in the scenic view shed overlay. And I know that I've had conversation with at least one developer who, was hoping that comes up, that they can get their hands on it. And when I said 1 acre lots, they're like, no, we'll do a conservation subdivision. I'm like, no, it's in the scenic view shed overlay. So.
Where is that on?
It's Foster Road, so. that
Yeah,
would
I know
be,
where it is. But so
Oh,
there's.
it's actually all this right down
Okay.
here. So there is some of the farmland up here
Yeah,
that's not necessarily,
not
but
in
it's all of
Goes all the way
this.
down. I mean, it's 100 acres.
Yeah, it's 100 acres.
It's big.
Frightening to think what that might sell for.
The East Lake Road one, what's the status of that?
That is in preliminary subdivision and site plan review by the planning board right now.
Okay.
Yep, 31 single family lots. Initially came in for 114 townhomes.
That's what I thought.
With a through road up through from 364 to Hopewell. Now it is, they're preserving the slope in the middle and the woodlands and have two separate
And no
connections.
townhomes.
No
No
townhomes,
townhomes.
just single family.
Does it overlap into Gorham?
It is it does not, it's on the town line. So Gorham is right to the south, Hopewell to the
Right.
east. So it's that parcel right at the edge of town.
So the project is not trying to be in two towns.
Well, it technically, there's 9 lots on the Hopewell side as you come in from County Road 18. You come down a road, there's 9 lots, and that leads into, I think, 11 lots or 12 lots on our side of town.
Because the original proposal, I was in terms of the traffic on East Lake. 14.
Well, not only 114,
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
but that could be not only the people that live there, but I think the concern was that that would become some sort of through road, some sort of shortcut from 364 up to County Road 18. So
It's all under review right now.
it is, it's in the preliminary review stages.
Okay.
We're still working through seeker right now.
Thank you.
Oh, look at support the development of affordable housing options and affordable transportation options for the local workforce. Karen chairs that committee and
I really think that we're moving forward, not as,
We're doing what we can, but it's a perpetual
it is. It's a-
job challenge.
it
but
is
you're
a
having
challenge.
the dialogue, and I think that that's huge.
And it is important.
Yeah.
Sarah put together a list of places to refer people to for affordable housing.
We
I
also
passed-
put links to those same agencies on the affordable housing page. I should link to that from our community resources page too.
And I've shared that with the county economic development people too. So, but 2 things that we're gonna be talking about at this Friday's meeting is the meet and greet which evidently the LDC is working on a list of developers or that sort of thing to be able to achieve that. And the other thing is, Matt's going to talk with Chris DeBolt about coming to the meeting and just briefly telling us what he intends to do. We've been told that he's going to do a housing inventory, and that would include an infrastructure inventory, which is it's a key part of any affordable housing plan. Absolutely has to be done in order to accomplish any kind of plan that has steps to achieve affordable housing.
So each municipality in the county would be part of it, assuming.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So I actually have talked with Andy Timon. And he's very eager to have something like this happen and see it as countywide, because he also thinks that Wayne County would join with Ontario County. They're eager to join.
And they have a,
Wayne County has an affordable housing
right.
consortium, yeah, which is pretty much inactive, but nonetheless, the bigger, the better in my mind. The more teeth we can put behind it, perhaps the more leverage we'll have in the tax credit arena, which is so highly competitive and is a stopgap for development of affordable housing units.
Well, Karen mentioned the infrastructure. That's such an important piece.
Exactly.
We've been looking at a project on Parkside Drive, and Chuck was with us with the Planning Public Works meeting on Friday, and we were talking with the county about a sewer line that's going to have to be replaced essentially before that development's going to be able to occur. And so, it's hard to do an affordable housing project and having to spend $1 million on a sewer line, right? So it's
It is.
those types of things.
But this is really why it's important that the county
Mhm.
be the instrument to achieve some sort of a plan. The interesting thing is there are two municipalities in this county who don't feel they have a problem. And I talked to both of their supervisors last week, and we all know who they are. They're Victor and Farmington. And Farmington, his comment was, well, we've got trailer parks. And I go,
That answers the question.
well, let me tell you what I have researched about trailer parks. And I've researched every single one in Ontario County and Wayne County. And all of the ones in Farmington charge at least $750 lot rent. They're all but one, I believe, is owned by Cook
And that
Properties.
doesn't even include the,
that's lot
whole-
rent,
That's lot rent.
right? That doesn't include your house.
And that's what I said to him. I said, an affordable house, affordable rent for a family of two would be in the $950 range. I challenge you to find a trailer that you can rent for $200.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've known Pete for a long time. He was really taken aback by that because he really thought he had this thing, beaten. So next time I talk to him, I can dig a little further. Jack Marin, on the other hand, he just doesn't see it as a problem, but that's okay.
But Karen, that's exactly, I think, one of the points of the whole team, right, is that education. Of those types of
Exactly.
things,
Exactly.
internally and externally,
So I've got to find some homeless people in Victor, which there are.
There's homeless people in
There
every
are homeless
municipality.
children in the Victor School District. But the problem with the Victor School District is there's people in that district who live in Macedon, who live in Farmington, who actually live in Manchester. So I don't know if there are people who live in the town of Victor. I just know that there are children in this Victor School District who are homeless.
Mhm. Well, all you need to do is speak with Family Is it Brenda
Yeah,
Spratt
Brenda
from
Spratt,
Family
yeah.
Promise? And knowing that there are multiple families that live with them and live in churches and move from church to church every week. Churches take them in
Right.
and
Well,
Victor
that's-
isn't excluded from
But
that.
that's homelessness in our county. Homelessness in the city of Rochester, sure, there's 10 cities and you can easily identify this. Homelessness in Ontario County are children and people who pay somebody every night to have a place to park their bodies. And there are many children in the Rochester School District who actually carry $5 bills around in their pocket and their belongings in a plastic bag, because that's how they live from day to day. To see it happen, and I have the figures for the Canandaigua School District, and they kind of, they blow your mind. How can this happen in a town like Canandaigua, where we have $1 million homes along a beautiful lake and beautiful scenery, and people saying, I don't want them in my backyard. Well, guess what? They're already here.
You're okay, that's great. I think I agree that with what you've said and what Doug said, and just bringing this to light, just talking about it, it's not going away. So you're doing really good work.
There's a lot of information out there. I sent you that list I sent you had like 29 names on it now, Sarah. But I have no objection to sending the information to people. If they're interested in it, let's send it to them, because that's more people that have this information and that can use it.
And that team has a lot of people who are very heavily involved in this in their work.
That's their
day to day. But
primary
we do
job.
also have some people who, like you just said, who just are interested, or they want to know more about it, or they don't know much about it. Who are residents, and I think that's important too, because maybe they learned something they didn't know before and might share it with someone else.
Exactly. And it's interesting that we now have a new county economic developer, and who has he's not a quote professional person with a fancy college degree. He is a craftsman, and it will be interesting to see how economic development moves forward at the hands of someone who has been on the ground floor working, in the building industry.
But he was also president of the school board, so he brings that experience.
Yeah, he has
and
both sides of it, and I do know him, and judgment is reserved at this point, but
And who is this?
Brian Davis is his name.
Okay, thank you.
he's a steel worker, electrical.
Part of the IBAW.
Yeah.
Okay,
He's from Clifton Springs.
Yeah.
Clifton Springs.
He's on the
He was
Mid
president
Lake
of the
School
Mid-Lakes.
Board. Yeah.
oh, man,
But this goes back to exactly what Dick said earlier. I mean, there's no more land being made, right? So it ties into the other stuff. Affordable housing is going to become more and more expensive because there's
Right.
greater and greater demand for the same area.
And this is how it affects the town of Victor, because the town of Victor is building a lot, and they're more expensive homes. So it creates more affordable housing as people in the $300,000 homes graduate.
Oh, they move on up.
Yeah, they move.
and with
moving on up.
construction costs being what they are,
The what?
Right.
construction costs. I don't know how you build affordable housing nowadays.
Well,
That's.
Right here, here's an article in the paper just this last week about a tiny homes community in Detroit on April 27th, 2022. So if anyone's ever been to Detroit and
I
has
love
seen
Detroit.
their
Such a good city.
inner city, you'll know that this is really a boom.
Amazing.
225 square feet in size. average cost of $52,000.
The nice thing about.
Guess what?
The
That's
nice thing
affordable.
Detroit has is affordable land, all that.
Exactly,
do, all that
exactly,
vacant
right,
land.
right,
Yeah, we don't
exactly.
have affordable
Right,
land.
right. That's why we need to think outside the box, you know? We need to have this thing with developers where, yeah, you can build 20 expensive homes, but build 5 affordable homes in there.
Excellent.
It's
Yeah.
only me.
It's a
Incentive
very,
zoning.
very complex problem. As we
It
know.
Thank you, Karen.
But we have a bunch of smart people in this town.
We do.
We really, they should be able to catch on. If I can catch on, they can catch on.
Are
What are
you
you
all
laughing
set for
about?
now? Are you
You're
finished?
funny.
I was
I'm
gonna
done.
move on,
I'm done.
just
Moving
because
on.
we're almost up, our time is almost up. Last goal for the year, invest in construction of roads, sidewalks, and bike lanes.
That's one area where I would say we're failing.
That, I mean, I had nothing to write,
My
on
first thought
here.
was which group? We don't
Right.
have a group that focuses.
Right,
on
we were
that.
we were looking at.
Planning Public Works.
Right, we were
No,
looking
that's true.
at site design guidelines yesterday, Chuck and Lance and I and Chris. Talking about updates, and there isn't a whole, and talking about complete streets and there's just not a lot, there's not a lot happening right now.
So right now, for a complete street, we have Canandaigua Farmington Town Line Road. We honestly, as
As
somebody
a-
who lives off of it, I can't wait for them to finally be done because they're out there almost
Well-
every single day working on it, but that is a complete street with bike lanes,
That's our
sidewalks, the
only
whole
one,
nine yards.
isn't it?
It is,
That will be the only one.
That's the only one.
You know, there's any number of roads, but road material costs are so much more expensive than when we did the budget, but you know, if we're going to make it a priority on paper, we also have to make it a priority budget wise, because otherwise it's just lip service.
Yes.
And so then we've got to start to identify the specific roads. You know, I took a picture just within the last month of somebody in
Oh,
a
yeah.
wheelchair on Outhouse Road, and here we have the inclusive playground, and they're literally sharing a driving lane as a car goes around them, right up on the shoulder, because that's not a complete street. I mean, there's any number of different roads. I think we'll have the financial resources in Uptown to build complete streets as that goes. We have the Uptown bid. I think that can be an easy priority, but these other areas, it's gonna be more challenging, and so we're gonna have to look at a case by case basis.
We did apply for a grant to help us rebuild North Road as a complete street, but I haven't heard anything about that yet.
And we are, I mean, we're forward thinking with our easements for sidewalks.
Yes.
You know, so that isn't lost, but you know, those are projects that seem to go out.
Yeah, new developments. The
New
planning board does a
developments,
good
yeah.
job. But, you know, like you talked about, maybe that could be an improvement. Instead of just sidewalks, we can ask them if needed, if it's warranted, or if it
They
makes
move the water
sense
line
for
to the
bike
other side.
lanes too.
Right,
I thought you had some
Piercebrook has a
language on that,
complete
but-
street, well, sidewalks on one side.
About 330.
So they're, I mean, yeah, they
college
work
to
with
the
us.
Intersection Lake Shore.
I think we're moving forward.
That's done.
Just, we're not seeing any results.
332.
Sometimes they're years out.
361.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
You know,
That
just
one.
look at Middle Cheshire Road.
That's
I mean,
There's
I
a
can
plan for
remember
it.
walking
360.
on the side of the road when I would
He's
walk.
like-
Now it has
Yeah,
sidewalks
364.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not
that
complete
one, yeah.
streets because they're
360, that's
not
gonna happen?
available
it's the
all year
construction
round,
right
Okay.
for one thing.
Yeah.
And,
That's
you know,
something we
having
went without
dedicated
for a long
areas
time.
for bikes more than just the shoulder, I think is also
Right.
part of. complete
Bikes are an
streets.
issue,
We,
but they're
the
doing.
sidewalks on East Lake, is that where you're, yeah, I mean, that is a thing, excuse me, I just wanted to call
Yeah,
that,
they're
I mean, you
working on
can
it.
see that they're putting them in now.
But let's see, Jim was telling me last night they're putting another stoplight on 332 by something. I can't remember where he said.
Middle Road, or Middle Cheshire Road,
No, on three,
improvements on that
not
intersection.
on 332 in Uptown.
Another traffic
Oh,
light?
and uptown.
I thought he
Not
said,
that I'm aware of.
I thought he said they were doing something up there.
They're doing something
state's
out
working
there
on
at
one
the
on
intersection of
520, but
Yeah, 5 and
the
20 in Middle Cheshire.
bypass and
Middle
They're putting
Cheshire, Middle
new-
Cheshire,
Yeah.
those are called mast arms.
Those
They're
ones are
they're
going
big
in.
poles that go
Yeah.
out. That was a safety grant that DOT got, so they're extending the traffic light on the other sides of the intersections. Because so many people were running the red light. So
Yes.
they're moving the traffic lights to the opposite sides of the intersection so that they're farther away, so that hopefully people stop.
Oh, that's what that is.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that project.
It was a safety grant that DOT got. So they're doing that one and they're doing the one up at the top of the hill in Hopewell, 247. So those are the two for that. But no, I'm not aware of anything on 332.
Yeah, he told me something on, maybe I wasn't listening. right.
Billboards going in.
I
Digital
have
billboard.
no idea.
Yeah. I haven't been to, and I want to start going to planning and public works. Do they have a plan for roads where they prioritize roads?
There's a
to be-
Cornell Roads program is what it's called.
Okay.
I think Chuck's with us, but where Jim actually has like a grading system for roads and then, but what really, I always say this and everybody needs to be paying attention to what's called the 284 agreement. The 284 agreement is an agreement between the highway superintendent and the town board. Every single year it gets adopted end of year for the upcoming year as part of the budget process and all that on the roads that are going to be focused on. And then the individual roads are listed in the budget. So that 284 agreement comes out and it says, here's the roads that are going to get worked on in the next year. If somebody's not standing up and jumping up and down saying, why aren't we making that a complete street? It's not going to happen and that road's just going to get done and moved on.
our complete street policy leaves that to the planning board and the planning and public works committee and to some extent this group, the CIC. When the complete streets committee was dissolved, that responsibility is now shared.
But it's a policy, so there's no teeth to it.
That's what the policy says, is these groups are supposed to consider road projects as they come up and say, hey, this one should be a complete street. You should plan it like that.
What are the measurables for that? You know,
For complete streets
Yeah, like
No,
miles of sidewalks.
with
stuff
like,
like that.
yeah, you've
Bike
got,
lane.
you've
Miles of
got
bike
sidewalks,
lane.
navigable curve, bike lane, road on both sides.
what is the EB? EB,
EB.
I'm looking at responsible entities.
EB,
environmental.
It's supposed to be ECB.
I was probably.
I've got ECB.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
There's a ED, economic. development.
maybe.
Oh,
ED.
maybe.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
the economic. development.
What would be
Where did this come
involved,
from?
Doug, in
Recognize it.
It's from March of 2010. Maybe it's the trails plan.
the 284 agreement, including complete streets
That
as
is
a
a,
component?
so
Is
New
that-
York state law spells out specifically these 284 agreements.
Okay,
The highway superintendent makes the proposal to the town board. The town board can approve it, modify it, whatever.
okay,
So it would be about getting into that process and saying, hey, town board, please make this a complete street. Now, that would be through the Planning Public Works Committee, would be
Okay.
the appropriate
okay.
vehicle to get that all in there.
So they would choose an area and include that in the 284 plan. Is that-
All the 284 plans have every single road, the micro paving that's gonna be done, the road
Right.
that's gonna be reconstructed, whatever's gonna be done to it. It's all spelled out in the 284 agreement with the dollar figure for that particular road. So it'd be looking at that 284 agreement and saying, hey, when you do XYZ
Yeah.
road, we really think you should think about complete street for that. Now, a lot of times it doesn't make sense. You get into a rural road, I mean, Seneca
Oh.
Point Road, right?
Yeah.
No.
No, it doesn't make
Right,
sense,
right.
right?
Right.
But there are roads that does make sense. And so
Exactly.
thinking about that and.
And of course, it would have to be a town road. It can't be
Correct, town,
a
Yeah.
county road like
Yeah.
Westlake Road.
right. That would be a
No.
county.
Yeah, that's
Right.
okay.
But then even that though, the
So-
County Road 16, there's a plan that the county did for County Road 16, but they're not actually implementing their own plan, you know?
Exactly, I know. That's why I said that.
So I don't need to keep looking out the window in Middle Cheshire
Yeah.
to see if they're at work.
Probably not.
But that could
Right now,
include,
just pay you.
Oh,
it could
okay.
include Outhouse Road,
Absolutely,
and it
yes.
should include Outhouse Road.
Outhouse Road would be the perfect project.
So
Mhm.
Well, I mean, that's just me saying that.
Outhouse
Still
Road,
pretty-
But I don't
And-
know where that's on the grading scale for the Cornell Roads program. That's probably still years away
okay, but
from,
so.
Because it's so new,
What about the road that goes by Blue Heron Park? That's another one that should
that's
be a
private.
complete street.
no, Parkside Drive or Fire Hall, it's just talking about it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
oh,
So both of those are in the Uptown feasibility study to include complete
Complete
streets,
streets.
right, for both of those. So yes, as those get redone, but you know, those roads are newer, much like Outhouse, so there's gonna have to be a concerted effort to spend the money on that. Now, those roads, that's what I'm saying, we have now the Uptown Business Improvement District, which is a separate taxing entity.
mhm.
So we can make a case where the Uptown bid
Mhm.
should pay for that
Okay,
because
right.
it's gonna spur economic development as that
Right,
builds out, right? Outhouse Road, we don't have that. That would be
Okay.
against the town's
But,
general fund, highway fund.
See, at this point, it makes sense. They're building a YMCA
Mhm.
on Bloomfield Road, North
Mhm.
Bloomfield
Mhm.
Road. And that goes on to the road by the Civic Center. I don't know the name of that one.
Buffalo Street
And then
Extension.
it goes on
And the
to,
city's even running sidewalks down Buffalo Street Extension within the next year to
Okay.
this.
and then the next road is Outhouse Road.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me that that area of North Bloomfield Road should be a complete street and then follow through on Outhouse Road. And they're going to have to do some work on North Bloomfield Road for that. Why?
Yes,
So why wouldn't now be the time to bring that forward to the town board?
it absolutely would, but somebody's gotta convince the town board to spend those millions of dollars to do that. Whether that's taking out a bond to do that
Well,
or,
that's
you know, that is a huge financial expense. And so that's where the Planning Public Works Committee, that would be the appropriate avenue to start talking about. But it's the same thing that we've been talking about for the last couple of years now, balancing the needs. You literally have roads falling apart. And so balancing the needs of those roads versus spending the millions of dollars here, right?
Okay, and so here's the other thing. It actually should be done from 332 all the way to Outhouse Road. Because on the corner of 332, you have several businesses, one of which is a food store, a Tops Market.
Mhm.
Where, number one, the other day, last week, I was in Tops Market. I was in there about an hour and a half. When I went in there, there were 3 people waiting with their groceries for a bus. When I came out of there, the same 3 people were waiting for a bus with their groceries.
Mhm.
And when I went out there and turned and went toward Pactiv, there's this man with a 3-year-old
Mhm.
carrying 3 bags of groceries
Mhm.
because he lives in Happiness House.
Mhm. Correct. The
Walking
sidewalk,
on the
only-
side.
yeah,
of
the
the road.
sidewalk only goes to the railroad track and then it stops.
Exactly.
That's on the city side. And so I've had a conversation with the city, but that's gonna have to be something joint between the town and the city to get from the railroad tracks back to the Civic Center and then eventually to Happiness House, if that's gonna be the same side.
And all of that was within an hour and a half time
Yes.
frame. I gave the guy and his daughter a ride, an hour and a half time frame. And it includes a grocery store, the largest business, one of the largest businesses in our area, and a whole street of other businesses, successful businesses, by the way.
Mhm.
I'm
But
at
this-
a loss with that.
This is, well, this also ties into the affordable housing piece, right? I think I've
Exactly.
told you the story about, there was a lady carrying a grocery bag that I stopped on a cold snowy night that was walking home because the bus only goes so far and then she has to walk the rest of the difference. So, you know, there's those things that are happening in our community. But this is also the whole public education and even even more so our own internal education about the needs for these types of things. Out of sight, out of mind, squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? If we're not talking about outhouse road and the need and the connection of all of this stuff, it's not going to happen because there's other priorities that are pulling those financial resources. So it's got to be a concerted effort to put pressure to get that done.
All right. Thank you.
I'm putting together.
Thank you for
this
your
pillars for the
passion.
floor.
It wouldn't be a town board meeting. without
I won't
you
be
in
at the
there.
next town board meeting. I'll be in Alaska.
Oh, are you gonna zoom in?
From the ship.
No, I'm not
We'll
even
miss you.
tempted.
Good. You need a vacation. All right, we are gonna wrap it up. And next meeting is June 7th with Matt. LBC.
I won't be at that meeting either.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck and Oksana.
Hi all.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.